Stop hoping for your business to grow and start mastering the formula for success that every entrepreneur needs to grow their business. Join us for 5+1 Mastery, where every week we go in depth on how to grow your business the right way. Learn more at 5+1mastery.com.
Pretty much everything I do now is like I knew by the time I was 40. I remember I wrote down a positive affirmations board inspired by Tony Robbins, of course. And at age 31, I wrote down number 7 out of like 12 was I mentor and lead some of the brightest and best people in the world. And I was like, at the age of 31, all I was doing was selling real estate and investing in real estate. I was like, how the heck this is going to happen? I don't know, but I'm 41 now, and that's pretty much all I do is I get to mentor and speak in the lives of top leaders.
I'm your host, Chaz Wilson. I bring you successful entrepreneurs, add valuable wisdom to your journey, and help you succeed. Welcome to Connect, Share, and Prosper.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Connect, Share, Prosper. I'm super excited to be with you today. Let me introduce my guest to you today. It is Mike Zeller. He's known as a top entrepreneur, mentor, and business architect. Mike has had a hand in starting or owning 15 plus businesses across multiple industries, including technology, real estate, fashion, digital marketing, and high-level entrepreneur masterminds and coaching. He's also the author of the forthcoming book, Twice Born: How a Crisis Can Remake You, which we'll definitely touch on that today. At his core, Mike is most passionate about helping entrepreneurs and thought leaders gain clarity on their zone of genius while unleashing their potential to make money and impact. Through that process, they also learn how to design their business around their strengths and a life of fulfillment. He currently leads a high-level mastermind for entrepreneurs hungry to step into their zone of genius, who want to find and identify their core 4% client that will bring them 64% of their revenue. Guys, help me welcome Mike Zeller to the podcast today. Welcome.
Excited to be here. Thanks for having me on, Chaz.
So there's so much just in your bio that I want to jump in. By the way, congratulations on the forthcoming book. We'll make sure we let everyone know how they can pre-order that here during the episode. But tell me where this started for you. I'd love to know, the entrepreneurial game of where this started for you. Where did you get the bug for it? When did you know that was kind of where your genius was?
In college, I remember when I was like 19 or 20, I had this, I was in the restaurant business and working, waiting tables while going to college. And I remember thinking, I'm going to own some restaurants by the age of 30. I'm start my own restaurant or be GM of a restaurant and part owner of a restaurant and have a nice BMW. That was my goal, was like, I'm going to, be making 6 figures. I thought that was the whole, aim by then. So the seed was planted there. I've yet to own a restaurant. I still will one day, but that's where it started. And then, I went to seminary. Actually became my faith became a central focus of my life. Went to seminary, got my master's in Christian leadership. While I was in seminary, though, it was like God stirred this passion for me, like for business again. And I buried it in the ground during college when my faith became paramount. And then God was like, nope, Michael, you're supposed to be in the marketplace. And then in my mid-20s, I started like some different ventures, invested in real estate for the first time, started building up a little real estate portfolio and did some network marketing ventures, then did, really started becoming an entrepreneur in my early 30s, where I started a car dealership, socially minded car dealership, where every car we sold helped us give away another car to a single mother in need. Wow. And upfront, very ethical pricing model, that type deal. And then, ventured into, digital marketing agency, real estate team, men's fashion line, sustainable fashion line, been all over the place, and then started coaching about 5 years ago. I just had so many people reaching out, asking me, as I was starting all these businesses, people started asking for business coaching. Yeah. And at first I was doing it pro bono, and now, and then I was like, I'm robbing myself and robbing them when I was doing it pro bono.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple quick questions. The transition from, sort of this path you were going down of with your faith and then jumping into business actually isn't a surprise. I hear that a lot from people because I think true entrepreneurs are very service based, right? And that, and so the transition is there pretty easily. But a couple of questions for you. Do you currently own those businesses you were talking about? Have you sold those? Are you leveraged in those? What's your current kind of setup?
Yeah, good question. Most of those businesses I've either sold, closed out, or pivoted away from, or I own equity in a handful of ventures, like some, decent slice of equity in two different ventures right now, tech-based, venture-backed startups that have raised millions of dollars. So I own equity in a couple of those, and then I've got partnerships right now. I've got two different, soon to be three different partnerships being built right now.
Good for you. So right now the main focus are these ventures you have going, and then the training and the coaching and the mastermind event that you do.
Pretty much everything I do now is like, I knew by the time I was 40. I remember I wrote down on a positive affirmations board, inspired by Tony Robbins, of course. And at age 31, I wrote down number 7 out of like 12 was, I mentor and lead some of the brightest and best people in the world. And I was like, at the age of 31, all I was doing was selling real estate.
Right.
And investing in real estate. I was like, how the heck this is going to happen? I don't know. But I'm 41 now, and that's pretty much all I do is I get to
Good for you.
mentor and speak in the lives of top leaders. And that's why I'm diving into the book world. That's the next phase for me.
Yeah, we'll talk about the book here in a second, but what a great lesson, you guys that are listening today, to think about something you just said, is that you wrote it down, you cast a vision, and I think naturally what happens is we try to then fill in the pieces.
Yeah.
How does that happen? And sometimes I think that's a mistake, to try to figure out how in the stage of casting the vision. Just cast the vision. You obviously were able to make that happen, but I'm sure at 31, you didn't know how long it would take, by when, and how to do it, right?
Exactly. Like so many entrepreneurs get stuck on the how. Well, put the vision out there, put the intention, the desire, and trust. And then unconsciously and consciously, just things start lining up. Pieces start falling into place. Never as fast as we want them to.
Right.
They do.
Yeah, but in their due time, probably for better reasons than we know at the time. When we look back, it's easy to see why those things lined up the way they did, or didn't happen when we wanted them to, that kind of thing. So tell us, you just mentioned your book. So tell us about the book, and then we're going to dive deep into some topics here. So tell us about the book that's forthcoming.
Yeah, so in right around actually about 2 months before I got married, my main business, which was my real estate venture, or my main profit center, basically it evaporated about 2 months before we were to get married. And
when was this? What time?
This is 2018. So like March of 2018, and it was a split between me and a partner. And long story short, boom, I lose a huge chunk of money in 2018. Then I had a real estate flip, the only real estate investment I ever had that I lost money on, but I lost a lot, like $250,000.
Wow.
So those two things, I just got pummeled to my bottom line, not like gross, but basically my net, about $500K that year. Wow. And right when my expenses are going up, and I hadn't built a couple of the other businesses into real profit centers yet. So my crisis started right before I was forging a whole new identity, right? I was in the process of it, but that fast tracked it. Because my heart, my soul wasn't in real estate. Like I knew I was called to something different, and I believe in real estate. I think it's a phenomenal, investment and strategy and all that. And so the crisis, and my own crisis, started then, and really went through 2018 through 2019. Basically, I went through the season where I paid off about $2.2 million in debt in about 16 months, and at the same time, my wife went through major health crises. To a point of like in 2019 in February, she was like basically bedridden for the whole month and could eat cabbage and sauerkraut. That's about all she could eat.
Wow.
And in the midst of that, I'm trying to reboot, rebuild, shift businesses, trying not to let go of employees I love, those type things, trying to figure out how do I navigate being authentic on social media as the midst of going through crises, but still I know I have value and I can provide value in the world.
So you had multiple things going on. Like,
Oh yeah.
I started writing the notes and I'm thinking, oh, okay, that was your crisis. But then there was another and another. So you had like all of these things going on at one time.
It was insane.
Yeah.
In a span of about 2.5 years, I had over $1 million of losses, or $1 million of different, like I had investors commit 50 grand or 100 grand or whatever, and then not come through. But I made a decision based on I was already tied and committed. So like all that happened total between roughly 2017 and 2019. And then of course the health crisis and all these things, and family drama, mainly on my wife's side. My family is reasonably drama free. so all these things, like emotional, physical, financial, just we're getting pummeled. And then early this year,
and you just got married, right?
Yeah, I just got married.
So,
yeah.
What's your wife thinking at this point? What did I walk into, or like?
Pretty much, yeah. And I think my crisis has helped accelerate some of her emotional, stress that she doesn't handle as well, and then caused her health decline, or influenced at least,
for sure.
And so I at one point I read, I think in 1 year I read, or one like 12-month time frame, I read about 37 different mindset books. Because I was like, you know what, I have to feed my mind as I'm going through this. I have to, like, I read Norman Vincent Peale. I read like 7 or 8 of his books, and some of them I read like just back to back to back, and some of them I read like 4 times the same book. Because I was like, I got to rebuild my mind and keep it strong.
So you identified in this time of crisis, this time where things are coming at you, it probably felt like daily.
Yeah.
You identified at that place because, and the reason why I want to bring this up is that we've got people right now, the crisis may be different, but it probably feels just as heavy, right?
Yeah.
But how did you have the awareness to know that it was the mindset that needed to change?
Well, from all my great question, from all the personal development stuff, I knew, like, if I'm gonna make it through this, I can't yield. There's a yielding process of surrendering to things that are out of your control. Mm-hmm. But the thing that is in my control is my attitude and my mindset. And so I can succumb to it. I can let go and just fall down in the gutter. But if I fall down in the gutter, what about the people that have had faith in me to lend them? They've lent me money or invested in something. My wife, my family, like my employees at the time, like I've got to show up for them as best I can. And there's so many moments where I did show up weak, like what I call my weak Willie identity versus my Magic Mike identity, like my different personas.
Yeah.
And so I had to at least put something. So much was being pulled out of the bank account, in my emotional bank account, I had to put something in every day and start my day off just feeding.
I'm curious what your self-talk was like during that time.
Sometimes it was crappy. There's moments, and now I still fundamentally, I had made a decision like 7 years ago when I was in Tony Robbins Platinum Partner that I don't have bad days, I have bad moments.
Right.
But that I could make excuses. And there were so many things, it's like our country and what so many people are going through, restaurant owners are going through right now.
Yeah.
Like so many things are out of your control. And I know now that the let's call it the shit storm of life, the divine storm of life that I was going through, where nothing seemed to work, and I couldn't, like, I'm used to being able to pull rabbits out of my hat, and I couldn't pull enough rabbits out of my hat. It wasn't working, but it was for a gift. So I wouldn't have been able to write Twice Born, and I wouldn't even come up with that idea. And I came up with the idea in early March. When I saw what was happening in our world, I was like, my story this is relevant for today's world. I got to write this.
I think it's interesting. Mike, and I share this with you, that I don't even know the number. I don't know the number. I was just trying to sit here and think, like, there's probably, let's just say 70 to 80% of my guests who are achieving, I don't want to say they've arrived, but they're achieving some level of success right now, that they define as success. Almost, I would say 70 to 80% of them have said that it all came during a time of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that because I want people listening, if they're in the midst of that, right, that should lean on that, because people have, our master networks came out of a time of crisis. I've shared my story to a lot of people. I had $27 in my bank account, 5 children. My youngest 2 are twins, so we had 5 children in 7 years. 7 years is, there's a whole story to that. But in that time, in that moment of crisis, the creativity came where it wouldn't have come before. And so I listened to your situation. I'm hearing this, and I love it, what you're sharing. So you started reading books. You started changing the mindset. But I'm curious, you mentioned Tony Robbins a couple times. Were there other coaches or mentors in your life that you leaned on or looked to for advice or strength or whatnot? And how did that impact you?
Yeah, definitely. And you always, it's really, I've had since my early 20s, since around age 20, I made it a goal basically to read a book a week. So I've had it, like, Zig Ziglar and other guys, John Maxwell would talk about, Tony Robbins talk about, hey, spend 30 minutes a day, or ideally in the morning, feeding your mind. So it was like a habit that I had been doing, but I needed so much mental support that, normally I might read a couple mindset books a year. Now I'm like, I read 37.
Right. It's good. That's going all in on it.
Yeah, because I was like, dude, I got to build this muscle. This is the most important muscle that's going to help me get to the other side. Because so some of the mentors, like I was in Tony Robbins' Platinum Partnership Program. And then I had a few other people, close friends, that I leaned on. But frankly, some of the mentors, other guys that I was in the mastermind, I didn't really, it didn't feel safe. The 2 masterminds I was in, to share the hell that I was going through. Right?
That is such a power. I've rarely heard that. I understand it, but I've rarely heard someone else share that. Those masterminds have got to be a place where you can feel safe to share what you're going through, or you can't really ever get to that moment of clarity if you can't expose what's really going on and be transparent about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. And I want to point out, like, what for Twiceborn, what the concept came out of is because in the midst of the season where so many things felt out of my control, I came up with a book concept, but I had read about Twiceborn, this concept of William James, the founder of the modern psychology, Harvard University professor back in the early 1900s. And he said that the people that are twice born, there's those that go through life that, they don't experience a whole lot of suffering. They don't go deep in letting suffering flow through them and out of them. Like, they don't necessarily, they play it safe most of their life, so they don't encounter a lot of obstacles. And those are the ones that are firstborn, right? They're not reborn. But then there's those that are twice born, those that go through major trials. Maybe they lose a parent early on. Maybe their businesses fail. Maybe marriages fail. Maybe health scares. And yet they allow that suffering, those trials, to remake them into a more beautiful, powerful, soulful, authentic human being. And they're twice born. They're born again. And they also recognize and respect the fragility of life, the fragility of what we go through in life. And when you have your 7 or 5 kids in 7 years and $27 in the bank, like, man, you make it to the other side of that, your character is forged at a different level that someone just kind of played it safe.
Right. So true. So First of all, love the concept of the book. I know it's still even pre-order. How can people register, find it, so that when it comes out, they can get notified?
Yeah, it's twicebornbook.com. So just go to that. Yeah. And I'm co-author. I'm the lead author on it with my wife and another buddy, Dr. Justin Mosley, the Mindset Doc. So we created it basically as a guide. If you're going through a crisis, whether in your marriage, health, or finances or business,
Sure.
like today, hey, how do you survive and get to the other side?
Man, so good. Guys, we're listening to Mike Zeller. We're talking about, on this episode of Connect, Share, Prosper, kind of how to get unstuck in a crisis. And many of you are feeling that right now, with whether it be the economic impacts of COVID or just personal things that are going on. There could be crisis that you're in the midst of, sort of eye of the storm, and how do you get unstuck of that? So you've talked a little bit about that today. I'd like to go a little deeper. One of the things you talk about is why your zone of genius is a lot deeper and more vital than you think. And where I want to pre-frame this a little bit is, I'm sure, as you noted when you were 31, what you wanted to do that you're doing now. There was something at 31 that kind of helped you feel like that's like internally you had to know at some level that was your genius, whether you could acknowledge it yet at that stage of your life or not. Why is it so important that people really find that primary skill, or as you call it, that zone of genius, or whatever that is? First of all, define that, and then why is it so vital that they find that zone?
Great question, Chaz. So it's so important because A, it leads to fulfillment. B, it's easier. Your zone of genius is usually markers of your zone of genius is it comes easy to you, but you don't value it as much.
Oh, that's good.
But it's unique. It's something that not everyone has. And C, there's a disproportionate impact and value. For example, in my mastermind now is called Symposia. It's Mike Zeller Symposia for the Successful Expert. So I help expert-driven brands, authors, personalities, podcasters, coaches, consultants, whatever it is, right? Like help them build out a profitable, sustainable business model, whether they're making, $500,000 and they want to go to $1 million, or making, 100,000 and want to bust through 250. And what I've found is when we try, you've been in a lot of different business ventures, you've had some failures and successes. You can trace back, hey, when the business was thriving, or when I stayed in this lane, like find your groove and stay in your groove. And there's natural pathways for building wealth. There's natural pathways for, sorry, someone's knocking on my door.
No good. No worries. No worries. This is what's good about this. Is why our last guest was in Jamaica, and room service came right during the middle of the cleaning service came right during the middle of the podcast. So same here. Here we are again. This is what it means to be the life of an entrepreneur.
Right, and to be, I am in a beautiful spot of we got this corner view. I'll show you this.
Yeah, this is awesome.
See, and you can see out the ocean.
Oh, wow.
Of course. A little bit, or hopefully, yeah. Anyway, so when you help people find their natural pathway for building wealth, because we get comparisonitis, where we're like, this person's doing this. Russell Brunson says it's one funnel away, or whatever, but that might not be your natural pathway.
Right.
We need to be more of who we are. Like, part of my process, it involves you coming to grips with who you're really meant to be, embracing it, stepping into it, and finding where you are incredibly valuable to someone else. Like, there's certain things that I do. I'm not necessarily the systems guy. I understand systems. You don't want me messing around with systems and helping, but I am freaking amazing in helping get You get mentally and emotionally and subconsciously unstuck. You find your natural pathway, building partnerships, creating an irresistible offer. I can do that. I can help you, go from 350 to 900,000 in a year if you've got some core assets in place and you're not tapping in your 4% client or whatever. Those are the things that I do. But you want me to systematize your funnels? No.
Right.
Don't hire me for that.
But and when you're doing that and you're helping others achieve, you're in your highest level of fulfillment too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that's important. Man, good stuff. So much we could dig on, and so much to do. How can people follow you, or where can they find you? How do they connect with you if they're really connecting to this message?
Yeah, MikeZeller.com is my website, and that's Zeller. And then Michael R. Zeller on Instagram, Michael Zeller on Facebook and LinkedIn. And this is what I love to do, and I've got the Twice Born book coming out very soon too.
Man, so much good stuff. We'll make sure we put those links in there. As we kind of wrap here, I want to, one of the big things we talk about is relationship building, and those relationships, everything in life that's of significance generally comes from relationships. It comes from the things that are important and how that ties into business and the network that we build of support around us. So kind of as to put a wrap on this topic today, how has the network and the relationships that you've surrounded yourself with, especially during a time of crisis, how did those support you and help you during that time, and how do they continue to?
Beautiful question. So your tribe, which is why I'm so big on masterminds, because it determines your, in a way, your environment.
Mm-hmm.
If you think of a ship in a harbor, if the tide rises, all the ships rise. It doesn't have to strain. So it's like, what if gravity pulls you up? So,
right.
and that's your identity and your tribe. So, one of the masterminds, going back to that season, I confessed a little bit of money shame to one of the members. So I got a lot of value from the members during that season, even though the leaders, I couldn't really share the trials. One of the members said to me, Mike, my friends Chris and Lori Harder, they said, Mike, Lori and I look at you, like I confessed that I was, I wanted to make about $2 million that year. That was my target. And for the gross for that business at the time. And they're like, Mike, Lori and I look at you like you're a 15 million a year guy.
Wow.
So
how did that feel when you heard that?
Yeah, that shift in my identity and shifted and it's something my wife says is like, Mike, babe, you have so much more potential, but the guys in the group, because they knew where I'd spent 2 years with Chris and Lori, and I'd stayed at their house and done dinners out, double dates and stuff like that. And I knew that we knew each other intimately.
Yep.
So we were able to speak into each other's hearts and souls more deeply. Like I helped them in different ways. They helped me in different ways. So,
but it's fascinating that when you heard it from them, how they saw you, it changed how you saw yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the power of the transference of belief, why we have to be close enough to other people playing a big game, and that stretches us, and then they can speak into our souls, into our hearts, into our identities, and shift it. And that's a big piece of what I love to do in my groups is really untap people's potential because we all have we know too much and we believe too little.
And that's what keeps us stuck in some ways, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's powerful, and we talk about the law of proximity. And so you were in proximity with this couple a lot, and you built the relationship, and then it got to the place it did to impact you the way that it has, which helped you shift. And that's why we talk about networks are so vital and so important to what we do, and choosing them wisely as we do. Mike, I feel like you and I could literally chat all day on this stuff. Truth be told, I kind of forgot we were doing an interview here a little bit ago. Guys, listen, if you want to, make sure you follow the links. Get on there. I encourage you to follow Mike and connect with him. And listen, every Monday, noon Central, I bring you successful entrepreneurs like Mike who are helping by sharing not just the successes, but the challenges and the struggles and the crisis as he described. Because I think what happens for all of us is we get to learn from each other. And, the most expensive mistakes are our own. When we can learn from others' mistakes and then learn from their successes on how they we shorten the curve for all of us. And if we don't learn and we just keep shortening that curve, we just keep going in a circle. And so we've got to be able to learn from others. And so my goal with this podcast is to bring successful people like Mike here today to you each week. So subscribe to the Master Network's Facebook page. Every Monday, noon Central, bring successful people to you to share their stories. Mike, again, privileged to have you on the show today. Thanks for the great wisdom you shared on our show today.
Chaz, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Always great connecting. Likewise, we could have riffed for another couple hours, I'm sure.
For sure. Everybody, we will see you on the next episode of Connect, Share, Prosper. Till then, be well.
Stop hoping for your business to grow and start mastering the formula for success that every entrepreneur needs to grow their business. Join us for 5+1 Mastery, where every week we go in depth on how to grow your business the right way. Learn more at 5+1mastery.com.